Welcome everyone back to another episode of Let's Talk Broncos. It's me and Zach Seegers today. Zach, how are you?
I'm great. Sad we're down Joey, but just glad to be here. Happy to announce that Deion Sanders is the new head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes. Joey Richards had it first. He's actually celebrating his big scoop tonight. That's why he can't be with us. Got the Philip Lindsay jersey up in the background. Absolutely celebrating that. And hey, it's Saturday night. It's live. You know it's got to be LTB.
Zach, on that note, because I think we should start the show off with some tremendous news. As a CU alum, how does that make you feel? Are you completely excited about this turn of events?
But I mean, this is amazing. How could it be anything but amazing? You know, like it's just CU football. I don't think it's been especially fun all my life. Like there was the 1 year with McIntyre and maybe a year there with Mel Tucker too. But for the most part, it has been a slog. And I'm just glad to see some fun. Like Deion Sanders is an incredible recruiter. And in college football, I think it really comes down to Jimmys and Joes over X's and O's. And he can get the Jimmies and the Joes. Travis Hunter, number one prospect in his class, one of the top 5 prospects of the last half decade, goes to Jackson State, which is like a bottom tier FCS program. To give you an idea of the conference that Jackson State plays in, they are undefeated and ranked 10th in FCS. There's like one undefeated team, I think, otherwise in FCS. There's 8 teams with a loss ranked ahead of them. Why? Because the I think it's Southwest Athletic Conference, the SWAC, is a very poor, like low grade conference. And Deion Sanders was signing like 30 classes to there. So imagine, and it's not because Jackson's Mississippi is like the pearl of America. I'm really excited to see what he can do in Boulder. I think he can build something great. And even if you don't believe he will, you're going to have a really fun quarterback, Deion Sanders' son, coming with him most likely to be the new starting quarterback at CU. That'll make things a lot more fun. And the aforementioned Travis Hunter, who has a good chance to be the top player in the nation, not a Heisman winner because he's a defensive player, but the top player in the nation next year is going to be playing at CU. I know we've got a lot of probably local listeners, Broncos fans and whatever. You can see the best college football player in the nation 6 Saturdays in 2023. That's awesome. Who cares if it only lasts 3 years or 2 years? Who cares? It's fun college football in Boulder, Colorado, and that is a rarity. That's rarer than diamond.
I love it because it's been, like you said, it's been a slog, much like the Broncos' past seasons have been, except this one's extended a pretty long time. It's been pretty frustrating to go through as a Buffs fan, so much so that I think most people, I think those who are
Oh
excited about it
no, I'm
maybe
worried
weren't
we might
fans.
have lost Bree. It's possible it's my connection that's lagging out. She was worried about her Wi-Fi crashing. So I'll take over and do this solo for as long as it takes. Please leave me comments and questions about the game so I can vamp longer. But yeah, let's just get into this Broncos Ravens preview. It is not a good look for the Denver Broncos this week. I think you could always every single week of the season kind of stake your hopes on this defense being fun and this defense being an incredible unit. But with the cracks we saw last week, I think it's fair to wonder if that's going to carry over into this performance against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, a very talented, scary offense. But first, we do have to get to the injury report. Thank you, Bree. I was panic vamping.
Oh, no, you're fine. It's I don't know what happened because I was talking and it looked like you could hear me, and then you went and ad-libbed for the rest of it. So I really appreciate that there. I do want to remind you, if you're watching over on Twitter, you can go on over to the YouTube or the Facebook streams to get your questions and comments highlighted. I didn't mean to share that slide so early, but let's just jump right into it. For the injury update for the Baltimore Ravens, it looks like there are some notable ones there. Zach, key it off. Tell me what you see.
Yeah, I think what I see getting Nick Boyle and Ben Cleveland and Daniel Falele is going to be huge for their run game. Nick Boyle is, you can make an argument, the best blocking tight end in the league. Cleveland and Falele, obviously on that offensive line. And then they're a heavy running team. Ronnie Stanley being questionable is the one that really jumps out at me. He has been such a boost. He missed, I think, over a year, something like 20 games or something like that, with a pretty severe knee injury, I want to say. Came back this year finally, and has been remarkable for them. Part of the reason their run game is kind of gone back to elite form, and Lamar Jackson, although he has no talent around him helping him out, is kind of back to on the outskirts of the MVP conversation. I think he's fallen out of it, but is having one of his best seasons, if not his best season since the MVP run. Marlon Humphrey being questionable. Again, full participant in practice on Friday, so you think he's likely to go. But Marlon Humphrey being questionable is huge. This Broncos receiving room is so depleted. It might also be down Cortland and Jerry Jeudy on Sunday. So if the Ravens were down Marlon Humphrey, it would undeniably help that those pass catchers get free. Same thing goes with Kyle Hamilton. If Kyle Hamilton plays, Bree, I would hammer the under on every Greg Dulcich stat. I hate to say it, but one, Russell Wilson struggles to see him anyways. Two, you're going to put athlete and a player like Kyle Hamilton on him, and I think it's going to be very hard for him to succeed. That's what would jump out to me there on the Ravens.
Zach, question for you regarding Lamar Jackson's potential limited ability to be mobile. I'm not falling for that trap, but I do see having that lingering quad issue. Do you see that that's been impacting him whatsoever? And does that explain the Ravens' slight bit of a slump here heading into the matchup against the Broncos?
I don't think so. I think the Ravens slump is more that their defense isn't great. They're undergoing a huge scheme overhaul this season, from Wink Martindale to kind of a Vic Fangio-esque scheme. And there is not two more polar opposite concepts. You've got Fangio, who's all about, I'm going to play a lot of zone. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to make you work your way down the field slowly and carefully. And you've got Wink Martindale, who is, I'm going to blitz you every play. I'm going to do man coverage. I don't care that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in NFL history against the blitz. I'm going to blitz him on 80% of his dropbacks. And that's why, going back to like Lamar Jackson's MVP run, that's why the Chiefs dominated the Ravens in like 2019 and 2020, because it wasn't until 2021 when Wink Martindale was finally like, fine, I won't blitz him every drop back. So they're undergoing this scheme overhaul. I think the growing pains have been obvious for them. They haven't been quite as elite defensively. And as a result, the whole team is resting on Lamar Jackson's shoulders. And he's incredible, but like even a star athlete can't, or a superstar quarterback rather, can't lift his entire team. Now, when you have a true superstar quarterback, it looks more like the Baltimore Ravens, where maybe you're like, I don't know, good on offense, but defense is bad, and that's besides the point.
I need to touch on that because the fact that you and I are almost always on the same page, you read the question I was going to follow up with that with and just answered it perfectly. So shouts out to you for doing so. Just because if you have a superstar quarterback, I mean, it is easier to do that. That is not an excuse, though, for what we're seeing with the Broncos, is what I was going with. So
yeah, sorry. I think
that's okay. You're okay. I'm going to load the Broncos injury report so we can talk about that as well. A few more notable ones. And I want you to touch too on Courtland Sutton being limited for an illness, because I think that might come into play. Do you think he starts on Sunday?
It's tough. I kind of think he would. You saw, like, if you look at Draymond Jones, I know his thing was illness. I think there was another, Andrew Beck had his illness thing, but it was the hamstring that ultimately kept him out. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else on there that had illness. But Draymond, for example, is one. You see him miss Wednesday's practice, limited Thursday, full Friday, and then fully good to go for the game. Sutton didn't participate on Friday, so he's definitely a lot closer there, but you'd think he'd get through it. I don't know. I'm optimistic he'll play. But if he didn't, I wouldn't be surprised. Jeudy, I think there's probably like a 30-70 chance. Was just super limited. during practice on Friday. K'Wan Williams is questionable in the graphic we have on screen. Since then, he has been downgraded to out. That's not a surprise. Judy was doing some walkthrough stuff with the team on Friday. K1 wasn't even doing walkthrough stuff. Like when they were going 20% speed, it was a saying Bassi in there. And I think that made it pretty obvious it was going to be him starting this week once again. And yeah, I don't know. They're just so depleted in terms of weapons. In terms of the pass rush, you'd hope Randy Gregory would be back this week. He's not quite back yet. Mike Boone coming back this week, not listed on the injury report, adding something to that ground game. The Broncos have to find a ground game if they want Russell Wilson to be functional. Yeah, it's bad.
I love that that's just the cherry on top. Is it is bad. The injury report doesn't bode well for success for the Broncos. That's why I think we should jump into what to watch for on Sunday, because maybe there is something that we're not counting on right now. You did mention Mike Boone. All year, I think that it's been the emphasis that the Broncos need to start to establish a run game. And that hasn't been the easiest thing to come by. Do you particularly think that Mike Boone will make a impact right off the bat in this comeback game?
I think he has to. It's going to be tough against that Ravens front. They've got some massive bodies there that can really control the edge. I think it was actually Hackett that gave an interesting breakdown of that during his presser this week. But yeah, it's going to be hard to run against them. Sorry, I'm vamping a little to pull up their stats. Yeah, they're top 10 in rush DVOA. They rank 9th if you want to be exact. So I don't think you see a game where the Broncos rushing attack really goes off, because I just don't think they have that in them. But one thing I do really like about Clint Kubiak is he's just committed to the run a little bit more. And I think they need that. It's not a good ground game, but you have to find some consistency on early downs. And Russ actually surprising me, not so much in that Panthers game, but the week before against the Raiders, you saw some nice things from him in quick game. And if they can find some more sustainability on first, second down, I don't think it'll make this offense good, but I think it can make it better than the worst offense since the expansion Browns, which is where they're at right now. And some of that's just like committing to the run. And it's not the most efficient play. Analytics hammers against the run game because it says most of the time it's actually like losing you points. It's hurting your win probability to be running the ball at 2-3 yards a carry. And there's something to be said for that. And there's something you just have to find something. You've got to find something on offense, and it's not in the passing game. You can't keep putting yourself in 3rd and 16. Like, better to be in 6 with 2 boring 2-yard carries than 3rd and 16 with an incompletion and a sack. And I think the talent they have on the line right now leans better to rushing. Mike Boone's also a really nice compliment stylistically to Latavius Murray. Sorry, I'm rambling, but yeah, I think you'll see next week.
No, I totally get that. Thank you for answering that question. What do you think Broncos country should be watching for this Sunday specifically? Are you leaning more offensively, defensively? I'm thinking they need to stop Lamar Jackson from having 300 all-purpose yards. I'm really hoping he doesn't absolutely tear up that field, the Broncos defense on there. We've seen them show signs of cracking, although I think a big game for Alex Singleton is in the cards yet again. But I'm curious to hear what you think is going to happen on Sunday. What should Broncos country be looking for?
I mean, it's so tough. I think team effort is honestly like the number one thing to watch for, because it was not there against Carolina, and I would not be I wouldn't be surprised if it's not there on Sunday. I'm kind of expecting it to not be. I think the wheels have fallen off the bus here. I think this is just like an utter disaster. And I think the players are going to stop giving it their all. It sucks to say, but and not intentionally, not that they're going to be intentionally phoning it in, but it's just hard to have that fire in your belly still at this point. I'm sure fans feel the same way. Like, how can you feel confident about anything to do with this team at this point? And these players are human too. They're closer to it than any of us are. And it seems really like a bad vibe situation. Another thing would be I'm curious to see how Russell Wilson looks this game. Can you see any sparks from this guy? Because if he's a superstar quarterback, you should see the sparks. I know the surroundings are bad. You're paying him like a superstar quarterback. Let's see him play like one. Just sparks of it. Like even Trevor Lawrence in like the horrific Urban Meyer Jacksonville situation. Like you saw the flashes of greatness at points. And he hasn't even really lived up to his draft stock. He looks really good right now, but I don't. You just like show us something, Russell Wilson. Show us something down the stretch because it's so hopeless right now. And you have to see something from him. This is week 3 working with Clinton Kubiak instead of Nathaniel Hackett as the play caller. They said they went with Kubiak because as the replacement play caller because he was the most familiar with Wilson and they're on the same page and they're in lockstep with what they want to do offensively. So people, you need to stop with that noise, especially considering the offensive architecture is almost purely the result of Russell Wilson. I don't know. This isn't a great Ravens pass defense. Do something.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Alessandra Rhymes commented, in my opinion, wouldn't think they'd give up, but to play not to get hurt, yes. I think that's understandable. I think at some point you try to limit injuries at all points in time, but showing that type of willingness to play is also for guys on contract years. And Alessandra also had a question about that. Hey guys, happy Saturday. What does the K'Waun Williams contract look like? Zach, do you happen to know that off the top of your head?
Yeah, I believe it's 2. They're not moving off him. I'll say that right now, and nor should they. This injury's not a big concern long term. Like, yeah, maybe worst case, he misses the rest. Well, he could come back next week if they wanted. They could deactivate him for the rest of the year, and it's not going to hurt the Denver Broncos. They're paying him $2 million next year. Off the top of my head, let me see what it looks like to move off him. I just don't think it would make any sense. They'd save like 800,000 by moving off him, but all of a sudden you go from having a really, really good nickel corner to having none, and it's already a shallow position for him. So
I don't think that's a smart thing to do there, Zach, considering that's been a question mark. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, you don't have to cut K'Waun Williams to move off of Russ. Moving off of Russ is very attainable. We don't have to be worrying about all these players' contracts. It's all guys you'd expect the team to cut anyways, like Lloyd Cushenberry and Michael Ojemudia, and then like restructuring with Garrett Bowles and Cortland Sutton. And yeah, I know it's a little bit of a tangent. I'm just wondering if that's why they're asking about the financial stuff. But yeah, watch for Russ looking like a $250 million quarterback, because we should see flashes of it if he still is one.
Oh, Wayne King echoes our sentiments over the last few weeks. I think he's been watching us quite closely. Put Rippon in the second half, run the West Coast offense. Ravens would not be prepared for that from our film this year. Time to think outside the box. That falls in line in support with my Russell Wilson doesn't play this every single quarter. From my bold predictions. Hello, Christopher Hart. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you jumping on the stream. If you'd also like to get your questions and comments highlighted, please go ahead and jump on over to the YouTube or the Facebook stream. We're talking Broncos versus Ravens. I also don't think that there's going to be that spark that we're hoping to see. However, that could change at any point in time. So it's not completely out of the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not out of the question. How can you possibly bet on it? I think everyone in their right mind is betting against it.
I think that's fair. None of us are going to be picking Russell Wilson for the player of the game, or maybe we are.
And no one's going to be picking Russell Wilson for player of the game. I want to correct myself. I was looking at the dead money, not the cap savings on K'Waun Williams a second ago. They would save $2.2 million against the cap. I just don't think you're finding a quality replacement for K'Waun Williams at $2.2 million. I think you draft a player, probably in the middle rounds, but heck, if there's a good one in the first round, why not?
What's the vet minimum?
The vet minimum, that's good. I don't know that off the top of my head. 780,000 or so. It's around that ballpark.
What did Bryce end up getting? 1.2, or did he get 2.1?
1.1 or so.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, you really don't want to get to that level. That's what I'm talking about. I was like, you could have had also that cost effective addition still here in the locker room, and they chose not to do so.
And I don't think Callahan's the same impact player as K1 at this point in his career. And I love me some Bryce Callahan, don't get me wrong. He also has a worse injury history and is older. Like the K1 Williams contract, I think really is nice. If I had to bet, just because he's going to be 32 next year, which is, of course, older for a corner, not as big of an issue in the nickel, but still something to watch for, especially given his injury history. I bet he is a 1-year guy, plays in 2023. The Broncos will have a rookie learning under him. That rookie will probably see some playing time, again, considering K1's injury history. And then eventually that person takes over that position. Maybe it's PJ Locke, who knows, but the Broncos need to invest more in nickel corner.
That's fair. And like you already said, nobody's picking Russell Wilson as the player of the game for Sunday, but maybe he comes back and surprises us. I, on the other hand, am picking someone who does have the hot hand on the defense, and that's Alex Singleton, as I already alluded to at the start of the show. I do think because someone is going to need to stop Lamar Jackson, I think you could see Singleton get maybe another a sack on him. I think that just because of the way he's been able to defend the run in general, the quarterback, apply a lot of pressure. He's at 90 tackles this year. I just want that to keep on going. It's something exciting to root for. I'm going to will it into existence. And I'm saying Alex Singleton has the player of the game. Also, it's a nice little shout out to the Broncos promo team, their intern, whoever does the Denver Broncos Twitter page, for putting him on the poster there with Lamar Jackson. I think that is actually a matchup you want to watch. How about you, Zach?
Yeah, I think it is. I don't have issue with that. I do think it's funny that you're seeing like Lamar Jackson on one side and Alex Singleton on the other. But yeah, they've been rotating it every week. It's not that weird. It will be a really fun matchup. I think that's a great one to highlight. Ejiro Evero said something that was wild to me this week, and he knows better than me, but he said Alex Singleton has the best reaction speed or reactive ability of any player he's ever been around, which it is insane to me. Like, who am I to argue with Ejiro Evero? But that's a super, super, super impressive comparison to me, or compliment to me. And you see it kind of on tape. He is often, the first time the replays out, you'll see him like make a play on a flare route to the running back, where the running back just kind of goes not out to the flat, but just kind of straight horizontal out from the quarterback. He'll make it on the opposite play on that on the opposite side of the field. There'll be a flare route going away from him, and he'll track it down and make a tackle at the line. And that's just not stuff you see super often, especially from a guy who, again, he's not super athletically gifted. He started in the CFL for a reason, but keeps making plays. I think has kind of outgrown his reputation with the Eagles, which was Eagles fans just hating him and thinking he was the worst linebacker alive. Look how far he's come. He's a great story. I think he's a great pick for player of the game, because he's going to have to be making some instinctive plays and I don't know, quick reads on Lamar Jackson.
I'm all for it. I'm a fan of the ugly swan syndrome. I think if you discount someone and you say that they can't, I've got a pretty good knack for picking those types of players out. Sorry, I'm getting a hangnail off of my finger because I am distracted here for Let's Talk Broncos. Zach, who's your player of the game?
Oh man, it is so tough. It is so tough. I'm going to go with Brandon Johnson. I'm going to ride with that. I tie in with my bold prediction from yesterday. Just also a good receiver. One thing they've consistently complimented him with, and I think they're right, is he can play every position at wide receiver. Because there's X, there's Y, there's Z. Wait, what is it? XCH? No, it's Y. Whatever. XZ slot. I always call it slot. And he can do all three, and he can perform it at a high level. Has the shiftiness that you don't often see at that body type. Christopher Hart and me on the same page. Cortland Sutton, if he plays, is not going to be at 100%. Jerry Jeudy, if he plays, is not going to be at 100%. Greg Dulcich is probably going to be facing off with Kyle Hamilton. I think that's a really tough matchup for him. And Russell Wilson hasn't been looking Greg Dulcich's way anyway as of late. I think it's time for Brandon Johnson to have himself a game. He's a good player. So far, he only has 12 yards on 6 receptions. I think he should be doing better than that. Brandon Johnson breakout. I'm calling him.
I like that all of a sudden you talked yourself into being ultra confident about that bold prediction. Can you remind the listeners what your bold prediction was from yesterday's episode?
Yes, that Brandon Johnson would lead the Denver Broncos in at least one of the 3 major receiving categories: receptions, yards, or touchdowns.
So I feel like it has to happen. Unfortunately for my guy Greg Dulcich, I don't know if it's going to happen for him. Even more so down the stretch, the season seemed a little less predictable than it was to start, and that's actually saying something. But on that note, I think it is time to let our listeners know a little bit about signables. Signables are the greatest new way to display your fanhood in your office, home, or fan cave. They're flat footballs with digitally printed signatures on them of your favorite players. If you've been watching the World Cup, they've got you covered there. But NFL is their new introduction to this line, including those like Denver Broncos' very own Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. I think they have Patrick Mahomes. So you can get on that now. They're a great gift for your favorite football fan this holiday season. And you can collect your favorite player or your favorite team by going to check them out at signables.com. Zach has
if you
his
love
Aaron
your kids,
Rodgers.
buying the signables. I've got the Aaron Rodgers right here. Sorry, Bree.
That's okay. Is it equivocal to receiving coal if you don't get a signables in your stocking?
I think it's worse. I think it's like one of the like European Santa Clauses that would like kidnap children who were bad. Like, I think that's what the equivalent is. If you're a child and like you don't get assignables, reflect on your actions of the year and you know how you can get on Santa's right side.
You're telling me that Krampus is going to come and kidnap all the little children who do not get assignable. That is fantastic. And I think that
I don't
needs to
think
be
he
added.
will. I think here's the Krampus, bad dude, evil punisher of children. I don't think he would go that far because even he would take pity on the child not getting assignables. I just think signables is the equivalent to a kidnap. Not getting assignables, rather. Not getting assignables is the emotional trauma equivalent of a kidnapping.
So Krampus reaches in his fanny pack of gifts because he doesn't, I don't think he has like a big sack or anything. And he just brings out a Christian Pulisic signable and throws it at the child because he now feels bad for them. So he's got to get him, the most impressive USA soccer player that there is right now.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
I'm reading that
I
right.
like that image. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. We've been joking about this in the group chat the entire week. I can't quite figure out how to guesstimate what the score is going to be because in my heart of hearts, I can't pick the Broncos. It's basically burning money at this point. I can't count on them to cover the spread. I don't know if they get within 20 points of the Ravens because Lamar freaking Jackson and Russell. Here's the frustrating part to me is if the Denver Broncos get into the red zone, they are less likely to score. So every time it happens, I just count it as that's over. And we're maybe kicking for 3, not getting 3 because we've seen how well that's turned out. So I'm having a really hard time coming up with a score prediction right now. But Zach, I think you were on the same vein as me. What are you thinking for Sunday's game?
Sorry about that. I was looking up some stats really quick because I'm wondering if the red zone thing is still true. Zone team stats, maybe. I am thinking kind of like you. I don't see the Broncos putting up a lot of points. I love Wayne King's score prediction and player prediction. He had Damari Mathis as his player of the game. Love that choice. And I love the 20-9 Baltimore prediction he has here. I like Topher's 27-13 prediction too. The Ravens are in need of a get-right game, and the Broncos are seemingly giving up hope. I think you saw signs of that against the Panthers. That was their worst loss of the season and maybe the worst opponent they've played all season. It's a huge red flag. And now you're playing a Ravens team that feels, again, desperate to get on the right track. And you're limping into that game. The Ravens have the number 1 special teams to the Broncos 32nd ranked special teams. And a little mini rant here. Justin Tucker on a 4-year, $24 million contract. Brandon McManus on a 4-year, $17.2 million contract. Not that different. Both top 10 kickers, both very well paid. Justin Tucker, number 1 in kicking DVOA. Brandon McManus, 31st. Also, Brandon McManus, unlike Justin Tucker, throws his teammates under the bus and makes jokes in poor taste. I'm done with it. Move on, Broncos. As a result, I'll say Broncos 6, Ravens 24. Brandon McManus misses a field goal and an extra point.
Good God. I'm not going to fight the point. I don't think that they're wrong points. There's a lot of aggression coming out right now. And I think that's just because we also, as people who cover the Broncos, are a little bit, I don't know, fighty, feisty, spicy at this point.
I'm just tired of it. Like, man, don't be like, okay, Russell Wilson's really bad right now, but imagine how much more annoyed we'd all be if he was just like throwing teammates under the bus left and right. Like every time he was sacked, he was like, yeah, I mean, it'd be great getting that third down pass off if Fleming could block for me. We'd be like, whoa, this is crazy. That is what Brandon McManus is doing while being the 31st ranked kicker. Get out of my face. Oh, and he's also being paid like a top 10 kicker. Get out of my face.
Go off, Zach.
It's correct, and you know it is. That's why you're silenced.
I'm silenced because something about plead the fifth or whatever. I was going to go the easy route and just say Broncos less than 16, Ravens more than 16. I would hate to say that I think that they get blown out, but I think this is the perfect game to have it happen. But let's go. You took my 6 points, so I'm going to go Broncos 10, which seems impossible. But the Ravens defense isn't really
2 big kicks.
that strong. yeah, I need 2 big kicks. So when you said that, I was like, that hurts my plight here. But I'm not going to sway away from it because I think the new 10 points is the new Broncos 16. So we're going Broncos 10, and I will go Ravens 24. So I would say at least a 2-score whooping here on Sunday. I think that's fair. Just given what you're going to see out of Lamar Jackson. He's that dude. They need to pay that man. I think it's been long overdue. Do you think that changes? What changes for Lamar Jackson? Because I think that this is an interesting conversation I've heard you talk about before. You think the Ravens need to make it happen, right?
Yeah. They've got to win this game, and I think they will. If the Ravens lost this game, it would be a major concern. You barely squeaked one out against the Panthers 2 weeks ago. You lose this past week in an unimpressive game, and then you lose to the Broncos at home. That would be a 5-alarm fire for the Ravens, who suddenly have to look up at the Bengals looking red hot and streaking towards another division title.
It'll be interesting to see. Hope that's not what happens here on Sunday. Zach, any final parting words, predictions, notes? I think I saw a comment in here too. Hold on one second because I want to get to this. Alessandra, I don't know if you were here to start the show. If anyone's listening right now and you didn't catch the rest of the show, this will be released on everywhere you get your podcast, but you can also find it on Mile High Sports or the Let's Talk Broncos Facebook and YouTube pages. Judy might be back, but I believe Sutton will get his fair share of targets. Sutton is currently dealing with an illness of sorts, so we're not entirely sure whether or not he's going to start or if he'll be at full strength on Sunday in order to make an impact here. I think then you've also got Judy, with an ankle injury, Handler being out for what I assume is going to be the rest of the season, how it's trending with that quad or a hamstring. So yeah, I don't know, Alessandra.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know how much you can put on Judy and Sutton this game. Judy was very limited in Friday's practice. So let's say he plays, like, what are you asking of him? I think it feels foolish to ask a ton of him this week. And you look at the staff of this, or the trend of this Broncos coaching staff, rather, they typically get a player incorporated into practice 1 week, and then he's back in the game the next week. I think we probably see Jerry Jeudy for the Chiefs game. As for Courtland Sutton, I think he plays, but I am just Yeah, Kendall Hinton's a good bet. I bet he probably is the most. He's probably the safe bet for the most productive receiver. But I got to ride with my guy Brandon Johnson. They're going. Oh, Christopher Hart rather going with Kendall Hinton anytime. Kendall Hinton anytime touchdown score. I like that bet. That's a good bet. But yeah, I just wouldn't put a ton on Judy. And then Sutton again, looking at like that 3-day track from the sickness, he's probably just getting back to being fully incorporated on Sunday, and it's Sunday morning, West Coast to East Coast. I wouldn't be putting your passing game hopes and dreams on Sutton's shoulders this week. I think you're going to have to lean on Kendall Hinton. You're going to have to find a way to lean on Greg Dulcich, looking at you, Russell Wilson, and you're going to have to find a way to get Jalen Virgil and Brandon Johnson both incorporated more. Those guys have both been open a lot more than they've been targeted.
Oh, I just hope to see a little bit more of a run game. I could really appreciate that. I'd like to see it. It would help Russell Wilson a ton, and I think it would give the offense a spark. It's not going to happen through the air. I am not hopeful for anything through the air going right at this point in time. Every time Dulcich gets a wonky pass thrown his way, I'm nothing short of damaged goods myself. Want to wish you all a very tremendous evening in preparation for tomorrow's Broncos game. We'll be back to recap it all after the fact here on Let's Talk Broncos. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good night, y'all.